Thanks for having me, Daniel. As you aptly put, I'm a interventional and structural cardiologist. For the lay people out there, that means I open up blocked arteries in the heart and heart attacks, and I replace valves. I'm also founder of Lila Health, but that's another topic for another discussion.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, as well as your Lila Health. But before we're going to our main topic for today, which is anything heart health. Let's talk about Lila Health first. What is all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the simplest way I can put it is this is a doctor's approach to the supplement space, which is full of bullshit. And accordingly, our internal and external mantra is no bullshit ever, meaning that we'll tell you exactly what the data is available on our website, as well as where gaps are, and basically inform you so that you can demand more of your supplements. You're looking to it for a solution, paying hard-earned money, and we'll show you the proof in the pudding. It's meant for gut symptoms, digestive symptoms like IBS, and also for heart disease risk factors such as high cholesterol.
A heart disease, how would you connect this to your product?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was born, again, a longer conversation for another time, but this was born out of research that I personally did with colleagues back in 2017. And the long and short of it is that this is prebiotics, or fiber for bacteria, probiotics, bacteria, and postbiotics, or chemicals that bacteria make that actually do the action that is helpful for health. And the three of the probiotics that we use, as well as the postbiotic, been backed by 13 randomized controlled trials to reduce bad cholesterol, which is the primary driving force of blockage in the arteries of the heart. We're hitting the gut and the heart by addressing inflammation, which is the mechanism that is shared by most chronic diseases. So very much from my day-to-day work.
Very well said, Dr. Bilal. Very well said. And let's talk about, as we said, our topic today is all about heart. Yes,
Absolutely.
anything heart health. So you are interventional cardiologist. You literally hold people's heart in your hands. Was there a specific moment or patient encounter that have made you choose this specialty, or was it this a quieter, gradual pull toward the heart?
I wish I could say there was some magic moment, but it was kind of a mix between the two. I knew I wanted to do medicine, and initially I thought I wanted to do a type of surgery or a surgical subspecialty. My father's father, my grandfather, unfortunately had a congenitally malformed aortic valve. He had what's called a bicuspid aortic valve, and he had surgery for it, but then passed about 10 years after, just before the FDA approved a procedure called TAVR that many of your listeners may have seen ads for. It's basically a way to replace the aortic valve without opening up the chest. And so, I found myself drawn to cardiology because of personal tragedy, and specifically subspecialized in interventional cardiology and then structural cardiology, which involves valve replacements like TAVRs, to honor my grandfather's legacy.
Thank you for that legacy for sure. You've mentioned a family member's experience with a heart disease influenced you without praying into a private matters. Can you share how watching someone you love navigate a heart health shape the kind of a doctor you decided to become?
Absolutely. So most of my extended family is overseas in a country called Pakistan. And healthcare is very hard to come by there if you don't have money. What I mean by that is, we visit every year. I've seen more times than I'd like to count. Somebody on the roadside, having had an accident and clearly needing medical help, and an ambulance won't come unless you pay out of pocket, which is insane. And so obviously, as most people do, they have family members who are a little better off and family members who are not as well off. And one family member in particular, not this grandfather, but the other, needed a pacemaker. The electrical system of his heart was not working. And getting a pacemaker was such a pain to the extent that we had to pay for a pacemaker and the actual device to be shipped over borders into Pakistan, and then had to fly there to actually implant the pacemaker into him. And that was beyond humbling. I didn't personally do it because, they generally say don't treat family members, and some may be bolder than I am, but I didn't want to be the one with the knife with my grandfather on the table. But somebody that I trusted did a wonderful job, and gave him the electrical system back, without which he would have died. And if he hadn't had those resources, like the vast majority of people in Pakistan and in most of the non-developed world, you're dead on the side of the road, for lack of a better word. There's nothing there for you, and people are looking for money as opposed to empathy and a commitment to helping others.
Helping others is priceless, people. You earned your MBA before medical school. Unusual path. Did you always know you wanted to bridge business and medicine? Or did that realization come from specific frustration with how healthcare operates?
Great question. Specific frustrations for sure. So I got my MBA because in the U.S. around that time, Obama was about to be elected as president, or had just been elected, and so there was all this talk of Obamacare and how the system was going to change from insurance to how private practices were run. I knew that I wanted to do private practice, but I got the MBA mainly to learn the language so that I would be ready to have those discussions when the time came, when I did my medical training. I didn't know I wanted to do business the way that I'm doing business now. I am in a private practice, but also obviously founder of a company. That came after essentially frustration with the system, as you had kind of alluded to very, very aptly. There's no good mechanism for doing research without good funding. And when funding dries up, as it has in the United States for medical projects, then you have to turn to industry. And I came to that realization partly by myself and partly by watching Google, for example. Google acquired DeepMind, a lab that was developing AlphaFold 3. Dr. Baker's one of the two who won the Nobel Prize, and he's head of a lab at University of Washington, and they developed this AI-assisted model that can take just amino acid sequences and tell you the 3D structure, when never isolated in a lab, of a protein, including what the binding spot looks like to turn it on and to turn it off. And so drug therapeutics are now accelerated. This Nobel Prize was, I think, 2 years ago, but that was through industry. I mean, it was Google sponsored. Yes, DeepMind was an independent lab before they were acquired, but essentially Google won a Nobel Prize. And not saying that my work will result in a Nobel Prize, that'd be great, but there's a way to do science through business. And that realization kind of, was what tipped me over the edge and gave me the courage to do this the way that I did.
Very well said, Dr. Bilal. You global citizen born in Pakistan or in the US? Correct
Born,
me if I'm wrong.
no, born in the U.S., but as I said, most of my family is overseas, and we visit virtually every year.
So educated in the US, now practicing in Georgia. How does your background shape the way you connect with patients who come from a different cultures and may have a different belief about health?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So there's a similar idea in Pakistan as is in India. India's kind of been adopted by Western culture in terms of Ayurvedic or natural healing methods, as well as things like yoga, for example, more for the spirit, so to say, than the body itself necessarily. So I have this sense from dialogues, from conversations with family members who are suspicious of traditional medicine, and for a lot of reasons, some of them being valid reasons. For example, vaccination campaigns in Pakistan, some of them were wonderful and meant to do what they were meant to do. There was no hidden agenda, but some of them were state sponsored and were more like a political campaign, if you will. It was more to grab intel about certain communities rather than actually helping with the public health. There's this very similar trend in the United States where the Black population has more than enough reason to be suspicious of the healthcare system. They've been experimented on through the Tuskegee Project. Henrietta Lacks, her cell line, kind of her invincible cell line or immortal cell line, was used without her permission and without any kind of credit given to her or her family. Examples abound, and there are too many, unfortunately, to mention in one breath. But that population in particular has a wary attitude towards doctors. I'll give a very tragic example. Within the last month, I had a patient who was getting a workup for a kidney transplant. Part of that workup is assessing the arteries of the heart, either through a stress test or a procedure called a heart catheterization. He had the procedure, he had multiple blockages, and without informing the patient and without asking for his permission, he had multiple stents put in. And when he woke up, this is all being told to me by the patient and the patient's mother, who's a nurse in the field. The cardiologist, who will not be named, when asked, "Why did this happen to me?" said, "It's because of your guys' lifestyle," meaning Black people's lifestyle, because you eat fried chicken and because you do X, Y, and Z. All assumptions that were never said. I have no reason to doubt the story that the patient and the patient's mother told me, but they came to me specifically because they wanted somebody who would listen to them and understand that they were essentially, being fit into a stereotype that was not fair. And also, it was immoral to do a procedure without asking for consent. You have to ask the person before. You can't treat people like guinea pigs. So that's one example among many. My wife is actually a high-risk OB doctor, and this is one of her main passions, is that Black women with the same socioeconomic status, same access to healthcare, have much worse pregnancy-related outcomes than white women or of other skin tones. Same thing in cardiology. In my household, this is a constant conversation. How can we help people who don't get the care that they deserve?
Interesting, Dr. Bilal. Can you actually scare someone into a heart attack? Or more seriously, how do you balance the need of communicate urgency with the risk of creating so much anxiety that patients become paralyzed or avoid care together?
It's a wonderful question, and it's an art that I have to continually refine. It's very hard to toe that line. I find that the truth is the most powerful thing that I can give them, and while it may be anxiety provoking, if I tell them, hopefully, you'll have to ask my patients, but if I tell them at the beginning before I give the bad news that, hey, I'm going to tell you something that may scare you, but I want to tell you first that we can fix this and we can fix it together. That usually leads to patients not filtering out and forgetting everything that I say after the bad news, which is human nature. If someone tells you, hey, if we don't take you back right now, you may die, or at least, be left with a crippled heart and a crippled lifestyle. Patients kind of turn their brain off because that adrenaline is pumping. To answer your first question, you can technically scare someone into a heart attack. What I mean by that is that adrenaline, the natural kind of fight or flight response, can absolutely lead to heart muscle dysfunction. So there's actually a condition called Takotsubo syndrome. The colloquial name, which I like much better, is called broken heart syndrome. It often affects people when they've had, significant, intense tragedy and grief. Often, the kind of classic example is a woman who has lost her spouse, and all of a sudden she has chest pain, and her heart muscle is pumping at a fifth or 20% of the vigor that it usually should. And that's a consequence of just massive adrenaline loads and that sudden kind of load that the heart sees that it can't keep up with. Thankfully, it's one of the few heart muscle dysfunctions that is actually reversible over time with medications and with certain support.
That's the good thing, reversal. Mm.
Exactly.
So, Dr. Bilal, you face a complex decision with elderly patients, whether to cath or whether to stand. How do you navigate that conversation when the right medical answer might not align with that patients actually want for their life?
Again, wonderful question. Uh, what I find is we too often, as medical professionals, assume that the patient doesn't know enough to make an informed decision. And so often patients don't get the chance to receive all the information. What I like to do, for example, is uh, I carry this little whiteboard with me and I'll draw out when appropriate, or even kind of make a flow diagram that this is option A, option B, option C, and this is the one I recommend because of X, Y, and Z data. I can give you an example from, a little over a month ago. I had a patient who was 78 years old and she had a heart attack. There are two different types. One is 100% blockage. That's an emergency. You have to take them back to the cath lab immediately or they lose heart muscle and potentially the life. There's another kind where it's not 100% blockage, but it's still serious. You should do a procedure within 24 to 48 hours, sometimes 12 if it's really kind of a complex situation where they're decompensating. However, she did not want a procedure. And so we had a conversation. I left her with all the information. And after about 30 minutes of kind of haggling and negotiating, she was adamant, I don't want a procedure. And so I told her, in JAMA cardiology just 2 or 3 years ago, there was a study that looked at her type of heart attack in patients 75 and older, whether doing a procedure and putting a stent in as long as they're stable versus medications makes a difference. And it turns out that the risk of doing a procedure in an elderly, more frail person, older than 75, actually doesn't benefit them as much as it does a younger person. It's actually equivalent to medications, which makes sense if you think about it, because if you're opening up an artery in someone who's 50 years old, they have potentially 30 to 40 years of life left where they're A, not as frail from a procedural perspective, and B, you can save heart muscle and give them a quality of life. For a woman like her who's 78 and has maybe 10 years, hopefully many healthy years ahead of her, she's already limited by her walker, and all she does day to day is wash the dishes, do a little bit of housework, has people come to help her at home. She doesn't need a lot to maintain a happy quality of life. And so that's where we settled. The data made sense. And I told her, you tell me, can you do what you like to do based on your current symptoms? Walk around the hallway, tell me. And she told me I can. I said, okay, medications are the way for you. So there's always, I find it very, very rare that there's not a way to meet the patient in the middle and still do right by them.
Very well said, Dr. Bilal. What is the most overlooked symptoms of a heart trouble that patients dismiss and even same doctors miss until it's too late?
Heartburn. People will often, and this is unfortunately something that tends to happen to middle-aged women, they'll have what's called atypical symptoms of a heart attack. And the one that strikes me the most is they'll have what feels like heartburn and they'll treat it like heartburn, but it won't get better. But nothing clicks in their mind that, hey, this could actually be a heart attack, because it's not common knowledge, or at least not common enough. So I've seen too many people come in late when heart muscle has already irreversibly been lost, because they think the heartburn is heartburn, because they already have heartburn based on the kind of foods that we eat. Uh,
Mhm.
so if you have heartburn and it's not going away with Tums or PPIs or whatever antacid medication, and especially if that heartburn gets worse as you do activity, you walk around, you exert your heart, that heartburn should be taken seriously, and you should go seek care. Preferably have someone drive you to the emergency room, because it could be a heart attack.
Mm. Definitely. Yes, people, check it now if you have a heartburn. You've spent years researching the link between the gut microbiome and a cardiovascular disease. For the average person eating dinner tonight, what does the connection mean in the practical terms? What does happen in the digestion affect what happens to their arteries?
Oh, absolutely. So the way that diet is formulated for us is actively working against our health. So the easiest and cheapest options are usually fast food or packaged kind of deli type foods that you buy in the grocery store, especially TV dinners, for example. Uh, People don't have cheap access to fresh fruits and vegetables, to fish, to things like salmon. Those are expensive kind of luxury items for the average person. And so knowing that the food that you're eating is leading to this low level kind of inflammation that's happening in the gut, that then leads to what's called the leaky gut phenomenon. Usually in the small intestine, the cells have a tight seal between them. And so what's absorbed is only what's supposed to be absorbed. With inflammation, that tight seal becomes leaky, for lack of a better word. And uh, toxins that are made by bacteria that live in our gut and don't necessarily cause infection. E. coli may be a familiar bacteria to people as something that can cause infection. It also lives in our gut without causing infection at low levels, but it continues to form endotoxin, which is the primary driver that causes the inflammatory response when you have an E. coli infection. If you have a leaky gut, now that endotoxin is being absorbed and in the bloodstream, and now you have these low level endotoxin, not enough to cause infection or cause a huge response, but enough to cause inflammation, which is what actually drives blockage in the arteries of the heart, stiffening of the arteries, basically bad remodeling. What I mean by that is certain types of cholesterol, like LDL or VLDL, kind of the bad cholesterol, gets oxidized or gets changed chemically by inflammatory cells, if there's inflammation going on, to then take a 10% blockage and turn into a 90% blockage or a 100% blockage. And so what you're eating is actively working against you. And it's hard financially and also time wise to eat healthy. It's expensive for the average person.
Very well said, Dr. Bilal. And to wrap up our discussion for today, the legacy question: if Lila Health achieves everything you hope for, what does the success look like in 10 years? Is it a product in every pharmacy, a shift in how a supplement industry operates, or something more personal like knowing to keep the patient from taking something that could have hurt them?
Great question. I would say a combination of the three. The way that I envision this is, as I mentioned, across different platforms, gut microbiome therapeutics, or where genomics were in the 90s. We kind of knew what was going on. We could profile a genome, but it took a lot of money, took a lot of time. Now we have CRISPR, and we can cure sickle cell disease with that technology. I see the gut microbiome therapeutics spaces like that, 10, maybe 15 years away from targeted therapies that are truly personalized medicine. So my long-term vision is, A, we show people that there's a better way to run supplements. You should demand more of your supplements in terms of data and evidence. And B, that this will become a therapeutic that is, like you said, widely available to the average person and truly personalized to them. especially with the advent of AI, to be able to take large amounts of data that humans can't compute and compute it for us in a short amount of time. Those links between different types of bacteria and the chemicals they make in disease processes will be made and will inform us in terms of how to treat people. And hopefully, I'm part of that ride.
Yes, I hope to, Dr. Bilal. Hoping for the success and looking forward for more products like this to come. So, can you please invite our listeners to support Lila Health? And if you have another projects that you are brewing, please do promote it
Absolutely.
now.
So Biotics Cubed is our first product. It's aimed at both cardiovascular risk factors, so supporting a healthy cholesterol distribution, especially lower bad cholesterol or LDL, as well as tackling GI symptoms, digestive symptoms like IBS. Coming soon is a product that tackles the heart health aspect and also inflammation and weight loss, and a natural alternative to GLP-1 agonists, bacteria that actually promotes GLP agonism in certain doses.
Yes, people, let's support Dr. Bilal Ahmed because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering products like this to rise. So, Dr. Bilal, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Daniel. Pleasure.
Yes, Modka people, see you soon.